Hello, hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Elephant in the Room. And as usual, my co-host Taranjeet saying, how are you, Taranjeet?
Very well, Muyan. Very well. I'm really excited for today's show. We've got a really splendid guest in front of us, waiting to come in the wings. So,
Perfect.
Muyan, you may want to introduce. Yes,
So maybe before we do anything, if I could get you all to do three things for us. Three things for us. Number one, please like this stream and as well as to comment. Tell us maybe where are you watching this from. Say hi to all of everybody else, as well as also if you could share for us, it will be ideal. Either you share the post or you share it as a watch party, so that we can have more people joining in the fun. So wanted to maybe just to give a background, and since I think we've been talking about it since yesterday at the end of the show, we are actually focusing on impact of COVID-19 on MCO, on sectoral or industries in that sense. So yesterday we had a very great show with Param Sivalingam to talk about the construction industry. But today we are going to focus on something that is actually more high tech in that sense. So it's very tech sector, particularly in the startup space as well in that sense. And startup as a cluster or a sector has always been, although it's small, but it's always been driving the innovation in the region as well as in the world for the last 5 years. So today we have a very special guest, and I'd like to get Taranjeet maybe to introduce him.
sure. Thank you, Muyan. Once again, welcome to Elephant in the Room. To help us address these questions on the impact that the COVID-19 has had on the startup and the technology space, we have absolutely great delight in having Sushil Singh with us today. Over 20 years worth of experience, specifically in supporting businesses grow in terms of where they are coming from, and the whole notion around the impact on their technology part of things. He started off life in Microsoft in Asia Pacific, then took on senior roles, helming a couple of these organizations as GM, managing director, and more recently as chief growth officer for one of the global firms here in this part of the world. Recently, Sushil took on the role of a chief executive partner of Crypt IQ, an executive partner of this international outfit that focuses on bleeding edge technology, on growth, and more importantly, on capital investment. I can think of no other better person to bring on board than Sushil Singh. I've had the pleasure of personally working with him on a variety of engagements, and it's our pleasure to have him on Elephant in the Room today. Sushil, welcome.
Hi, thank you for the kind words, Taranjeet. It's very good to be here. Hi, Mihan, how are you?
Hi, hi, Sushil. Welcome on board. Okay, I'll leave Taranjeet to do the necessary. I'll come back in a short.
So let's start off, Sushil, very quickly with a big question, and the question is: how do you see, from your experience and your vast understanding of this particular sector, how do you see the tech sector, the tech startup space, looking like, given this ominous cloud of COVID-19 that has shrouded us over the past several months?
I think what has been a hallmark of the tech sector is when there's disruption and when there's change, that's when you get the greatest innovation. And as horrible as COVID-19 is, this is actually a huge opportunity for the tech sector, where many of us have never experienced change or disruption like this in our lifetime. So when it is totally new, there are opportunities to think out of the box. Today, we don't even know what the new normal is going to be. We don't have a normal. It keeps changing from day to day, week to week, month to month. We're trying to anticipate what the new normal will look like. And the tech sector, especially the tech startups with deep technology, have a obligation and an opportunity to influence how the world functions going forward.
Excellent. Excellent. So what about in terms of employment? You talked about opportunities. What about in terms of employment, Sushil?
So the latest figures that have come out of Singapore are between, conservatively, I think DBS has said 65,000 jobs will be lost. Other analysts have put it up to above 200,000 in Singapore. The BBC, there was an article yesterday which said that there would be worldwide job losses of 1.5 billion. And this is across sectors, across the globe. So these are, I don't think these numbers have, any of us have actually experienced numbers and the magnitude of, as such. So what we see and what we feel is that there would be opportunities for startups where you are able to address some of the gaps that are, or some of the shortfalls that are happening in some of these industries. For example, we see losses in, the most common one is in the retail industry, and how is that going to play out? So people will still have to purchase, people will still have to procure. There will be changes in the supply chain. How can we automate that? How can we make that more seamless? And what I think the analysts are predicting is job losses in industries and in sectors that we know of today. But there would be job gains in new sectors and new industries that we wouldn't have fathomed, a year or two ago. So I think that there's opportunities, a lot of doom and gloom, but I see it as potential for individuals to reskill, retrain, and maybe reinvent themselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for that perspective, Sushil. So maybe before I move on further, I just want to maybe again welcome for those who have just joined us. Welcome again to another episode of Elephant in the Room. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Sushil Singh from Singapore, who will give us a perspective on how the COVID-19 and MCO, or even the lockdown in Singapore, they call it a circuit breaker in Singapore, has an impact on the tech and startup sector. Before I further go for anything further, I just also want to take this opportunity to do a bit of shout out. So again, thank you, Zorab, for tuning in. Far corner from PJ. Which corner is that? Okay. Also good to see Ranjit from Lekker. Welcome back. All right. My good brother Ted Mui. Thank you. I appreciate your support. And lastly, Jack. Welcome to our show. You jump off from your own show and come into our show. So coming back, Sushil, wanted to check with you, since you also have a very good perspective of the region. One thing that maybe you could give a perspective of, how does the current situation impacting the technological or the tech firms within the region?
We see that. What we see is that in the past, probably 4 or 5 years, the access to information and technologies allowing anyone with a good idea to create world-changing solutions. And in the region, we're seeing some very, very interesting tech coming out of countries like Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Australia, even in Australia, not from Sydney and Melbourne, but from places like Perth, Adelaide. So there's a leveling of the playing field. And I think that this opportunity, tech and entrepreneurs and startups, people who are visionaries, people who want to change the world, they don't let challenges get in their way. So we still see a lot of these things. We see a lot of this coming up. And there are changes in countries like Singapore, where we are looking at things like food security, not only Singapore, but in other countries across the region. And these new areas of focus are also driving a lot of entrepreneurial and technology thinking. We have people who are looking to grow fruits and vegetables and other things in containers. And that's a Malaysian startup that is doing that. We have a startup in India that is looking at crowdsourcing mangoes and bringing those mangoes to communities and to um, uh, apartment complexes within India. And we were speaking to them recently, and we were thinking about how could they crowdsource the demand. Say, if you're looking for mangoes and using technology, and actually with the supply chains, bring that to places like Singapore, to Malaysia, across the region. So a lot of very, very out of the box thinking, which is, in a way, it's the current situation has necessitated that, and in that way, it's a good thing because this is a driver for creative thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's a very good point. And I'm also sensing just from that past comment about collaboration. You mentioned Cambodia and Australia, ANZ as a whole. I know you play quite a bit with the Israelis and how you're bringing in that sort of technology. How do you see this moving forward, Sushil? A collaborative cross-border type of an approach.
I think that is the new normal. Earlier on I started off in saying we do not know the new normal, but collaboration is key. You cannot survive without collaboration. And one of the things that puts startups in very good stead is that's how we think. We think along the lines of collaboration. We think along the lines of win-win. We think along the lines of how do we get the best minds, the best ideas, how do we package them, and how do we bring them to market? We're not encumbered by obsolete or old technology that we're trying to maintain and we're trying to milk and we're trying to, and we don't have the issue of shareholders that are pushing us to maintain this. I mean, I come from an enterprise background, and the legacy solutions, the legacy technologies, it's a big problem. It's a real burden. It's a weight on us. With startups, you don't have this. You have agility, which is a huge advantage, being nimble, the ability to pivot and address specific pains, needs, and opportunities is a huge asset. And there's no other way than to collaborate. We're collaborating. Sorry, yes.
No. So just to highlight on that, and before we go any further, this is Sushil in Elephant in the Room, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the impact of COVID-19 on the startup and the tech space. So thanks for joining us. So coming back to this, Sushil, how does this then impact the area of funding? I know CryptIQ, the executive, which you are an executive partner with. I know CryptIQ is also looking at this area of funding and looking specifically at startups in this regard. So how does this work, Sushil?
So what has happened today is, I think this has been coming, right? There's been a recalibration of cheap capital. In the past, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was a lot of capital being thrown at any good idea. We saw this tainted. We are very strong in blockchain. We've got a couple of blockchain technologies that we've created in-house, like Hosho and the Tensho wrapper. These are game-changing blockchain foundational elements that can run most businesses. But you saw that with blockchain, with cryptocurrency, where there's exuberance, but there's no sense of reality. We saw that with WeWork. Gone are the days when valuations were based on customer acquisition. Access to funding has dried up. We talk to VCs, we talk to investors, and we are telling our clients to be pragmatic, to spend wisely, to focus on opportunities that you believe in. And what the VCs and investors are doing is they're keeping the powder dry. Things are going to get worse once the government stimulus packages wear off. We're not going to see those kind of stimulus packages running for too long. We believe that in the next 6 months, when they wear off, that's when the rubber will hit the road, and that's where you will find you really need to have you have to have a very strong business strategy. You need to be able to execute and get through that time. There'll be opportunities for some, but for others it would be a time to really focus on your core strengths and mitigate or minimize risks. There'll be a lot of fire sales. There will be a lot of acquisitions. We are looking at some interesting tech. One of the challenges that you find with technology and with startups is there's some amazing tech out there. We've seen some brilliant tech, but having good tech and having the branding, the marketing, the sales, and the channel to go out there and actually consume and to commoditize the tech, that is lacking. And we've got our eyes on some of this tech. What we would do is we would pick some of this tech up and keeping the technology in place, but bringing on proper go-to-market strategies or channels to market that can go in and take this tech further. So
Okay.
a lot of opportunity there.
Maybe I just wanted to interject a bit. Thanks for that perspective, Sushil. I have a question here from our listener, Dr. Michael Heng. He asked, how does COVID now make blockchain technology even more relevant in the medical and social sectors? Maybe you can give your perspective on that.
Thank you very much for that question. The two fundamental aspects of blockchain are immutability and security. So in the medical and social sectors, immutability and security are key. With medical devices, in medicine, the traceability element of the blockchain is unsurpassed. In the social sectors, we've got one of our partners out of Moscow, and they're working with an outfit out of St. Petersburg, where they're providing secure communication that is used by a social self-help outfit that reaches out to underprivileged or children at risk. And to have that data secure is paramount, because you don't want somebody, people are having problems, there are issues in the medical space, you may have a disease, you may have something, you don't want that to go out in the open. We've had that issue in Singapore where, I'm not sure if you're aware, where HIV patients' records were available to everyone. A solution like the blockchain and our Hosho solution and many other blockchain solutions out there mitigate that risk. So it's a huge, huge opportunity. Traceability, security, and immutability.
Can I ask you one last question, Sushil, before cognizant of time here? The implication of sustainability of business moving forward. You've mentioned it is going to be a tough time even for startups, although they are nimble. They don't have the type of powder to support them like the big MNCs. And that has a direct implication on their sustainability and work. How do you see this playing out? And that's a difficult question because we have a lot of people playing in the tech space. Do I still have a job working tomorrow? Do I have to be concerned about this? What are your views on that, Sushil?
So I think that everybody should reevaluate, and you should look at the value that you bring. I think it all boils down to value. And value is not going to go away. So if you are fundamental to the success of an organization, then you will have value. If you do not have value, I think that there's an opportunity. What is the silver lining here during COVID-19 is the governments, and I see the Malaysian government is doing it, Singapore government, I'll mention most governments are doing this. They are helping their citizens retrain, reskill. And this is something that you need to do for yourself. You still have runway. It's not like things are going to fall off the cliff. For some people, things are going to get bad, but there's an opportunity. And this is, I would advise everyone to evaluate where you are, look at the opportunities, look at your passion, look at what you want to do, and then make use of these opportunities that are available. And what we hear is that when you're sitting at home, lockdown, you have more time, you don't have certain things that you're going to do. It's an opportune time to go and pick up a course. I've been binging on the Harvard Business School recordings. You look at stuff, Stanford, there's so much out there that can keep you busy, and you can come out a much better, more rounded person. But also for your employability, you can become a much more valuable member to the organization that you belong to. And trust me, value is appreciated.
Good.
Wonderful. So I like that part, Sushil, because we were talking in another show just before this. Most of us binge on Netflix for the last few weeks. You binge on Harvard online program. so that's yeah. So again, yeah, we are coming running out of time, and I think we are coming to the end of the show. So maybe for that, maybe I'll get Taranjeet to give us a few takeaways from today's discussion with Sushil. Okay, I think I lost.
Of course. So first thing, thank you very much, Sushil, Thank you, Sushil, for being here. A couple of things are playing out. One is the opportunities that are out there for startups in the tech space, especially. The other thing is the ability now for collaboration. That whole collaborative environment is absolutely crucial, and I do see this being critical for survivability moving forward. But what we also need to be mindful of is the burning of our cash. And those are two mantras that we've been talking about for these last couple of weeks. One is around cash preservation, and the other one is around cost containment. How do we go out there to ensure that we're able to fight another day? But what I do like, your last thoughts is around relevance. And that we have heard many times, whether it be from Dharman right at the beginning, or whether it be from Sharon more recently, where it's about you being relevant to the organization and you doing the things that will push the organization to another level. And that's absolutely critical. Muihan, back to you.
So yes, thank you guys. We are at the end of the show, but just before we go, I just want to again bring back our screen. So for tomorrow's show, we are actually very fortunate to continue the discussion, and we have with us Professor Dr. Vinitha Guptan, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Saito University in Malaysia. So we will have her on board to actually further discuss the impact of COVID-19 and MCO, in particularly to the university or the academia sector in that sense, right? So with that, please stay tuned to us tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We will see you once again. And thank you once again. Stay safe for our Muslim friends. Please, selamat berbuka puasa, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you. Bye-bye.